Hey kids, welcome to episode 2 of the Trailhead, where the trail starts and the stories unfold. I'm one of your hosts, JD, and we've got Pope and Randy of Gem and the Misfit, and Jason with Red Ruby Jeep here. We're diving deep into Argentine Pass, my favorite sky-high Colorado trail. I think that we have a quorum for today. It's the round table of the white guys.
We're so diverse.
I feel like we got off to a good start. So, here we are on episode 2. We're back to white. No, it was actually really cool. It was nice to see. It was nice to have Lily join, and it's awesome to have Randy join. I told Jen that I would reconfigure this desk if she wanted to join us. So we'll see if she actually takes me up on that. So I don't know how nervous she feels about that kind of. So speaking of not so well-known ones, and I'll feature this one at some point down the road. Probably, I wanted to get out there this fall to do new pictures for Porcupine Rim. Do you ever heard of that trail before?
I have, yes. In Moab?
Okay. Yeah.
I haven't. Well, obviously, because I'm on the East Coast.
No, it's okay. It's a trail that's right out of it's in the same area that Finn's is and Hell's Revenge and all that stuff. You just take a slight turn off the road, and it doesn't look like a trail. And then you kind of head down it, and then you go down some really cool steps, but there are some amazing scenic views. It is the only time that I have ever stepped up close to the edge of anything and was like, oh, that's enough. I'm going to step back now. Like it was 2,000 or 3,000 feet straight into Castle Valley. It's Castle Valley. Gorgeous. So that's one I really want to do.
The Porcupine Rim, I haven't been on it yet. Where it lives in terms of difficulty is somewhere between Fins and Things and Hell's Revenge.
Yeah,
and it's on the easier end of that. I believe it's kind of like I think they rated it a 5.
Yeah, I gave it kind of a moderate rating, and the steps got a little more washed out the year or two after I did that the first time. It's just the nice part about it is that it's off the beaten path. Is that there's a lot of people that don't go down there because they don't realize that there's a cool trail down that way. There's like, oh, there's just a little bit of a shelf road, and they don't want to deal with it at all.
Yeah, and even a lot of people who will hardcore will just skip it. Or hardcore rock crawler people will just skip something like that because they think it's a shelf road, and it's actually a missed opportunity if you don't go out and try.
There's a lot of cool rocks in that part of that trail. That's the nice part about it. Like there comes a place where it gets pointless to keep going because of the weird turnaround spot that you end up at, especially these days. But it's still well worth it to go at least down to some of those scenic views. There's 2 scenic overlooks that I can think of off the top of my head, and then it's probably your best friend. If anybody's listening, just turn around to the second scenic view. You don't need to go any further. That was an all day event for us too. That was the Light Bright situation. Yeah. All right. We had. Just if you are joining us for the first time, we've got Jason of Ruby Red Jeep.
And we have my video and audio is freezing up again. I don't know if you guys can hear me.
For the second time. Lily and Randy are not with us this week. We'll have some other folks as we go forward. We're going to get some different people in here and rotate folks in and out depending on who's available and who's not. Because let's face it, we're all busy. Let's see here. This is our second episode, so I'm going to remind folks we are just getting kind of rolling here, and we're just going to start getting a rolling list of questions and comments and stuff from folks. I got to say thank you to everybody who's commented and liked all the posts that we've shared so far. It's a lot of really great feedback in a lot shorter order that I don't think a lot of us expected. If you've got questions or comments, please let us know. Shoot us messages or shoot us a comment and let us know that it's a question for the show, and we'll get it out here. We'd like to answer some questions. If we think it's a good question, maybe we'll get a hold of you and get you either to call in or drop us a video note. You're going to Trail Heroes just all next weekend, or is it an all-week event?
It's an all-week event. it officially starts Tuesday, October 2nd, and then it runs through the rest of the week on Saturday. And we're going to be there Friday night or Saturday morning. We haven't decided where we're going to leave yet. And we'll be wheeling out with everybody until the real event starts. And then we got a couple of sponsor obligations to take care of, and then we've signed up for some trails. So if people are signed up for the Maze or for the Fallen, they'll be able to come and hang out with us. And last year we streamed the Fallen and live, or during Winter 4x4 we streamed the Fallen live both on our TikTok and on IG. And
I'm
so
pretty sure I watched
you might be able to see it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Misfit was over on the side during that one.
Yeah, and I do remember. Yeah, I did.
I remember seeing that too. Yeah.
Yeah, he was on two wheels. Almost like I knew it was going to happen. And I was trying to see if Chuck knew something that I didn't, maybe.
Like maybe there's some sort of special physics that's going to work here in my favor that I don't know about.
Yeah, exactly. And so he was pretty sure the tires were going to catch and stick, and it didn't, and it just kind of tipped. But I already kind of knew it was coming, so I was ready to hit neutral and get out of it before it was too dangerous.
I feel like it's one of those things where once you've driven the Jeep long enough, you've kind of figured out where your point of no return is. Like, if I go any further, this is going to be the end of it. I know Jen doesn't quite understand that, and I wish she did. Like, I know, like, if we're out in fins, I know where the breakover is going to be too high. I know it's where where I'm going to just go tumbling down the dirt. I'm not gonna here, but I'll let you know because I'm going to tell you to buckle in.
Yep.
What about you, Jason? Have you anything going on this week, or are you all just kind of BAU for you? Regular?
Yeah, nothing. I mean, wheeling wise, nothing. Nothing that I have going on soon. I was gonna do Hunter Mountain, which I do every October, up in Hunter Mountain, New York. But I was actually too late to the party because you have to sign up for the trail, and the trail is sold out. So unfortunately, I'm gonna miss that. But I'm definitely going to seek out other opportunities. So we'll see how that goes.
Man, that's something we should talk about one of these.
Yeah, that's definitely. Yeah, it's definitely. It can get frustrating, especially here on the East Coast where there aren't many places to wheel. So you have a crowd of people just, converging in just one area.
So I mean, there are certain times of the year I won't even bother to go to Moab. Like, I'm not going to try. In fact, my favorite days of the week to go to Moab are Monday through Wednesday.
Okay. So, is there a period, like a time of the year where it's just like outrageously like packed?
EJS.
I mean, EJS, yeah. Summer.
That makes sense. Yeah.
March and April are pretty busy in general because it's probably, I would even say include May. Those are the ideal cooler temperatures.
Okay. And
once you get to June through August, it's almost too unbearable, and you don't really want to go. September's not.
As in, like,
hot.
way too hot, yeah.
Yeah, way too hot. And your car doesn't like it. You don't like it. It's just not good for you to do.
Yeah.
And then, like, in the winter months, Moab's hit or miss. You could have snow on the trail, and you'd be in a super extremely dangerous situation even on basic trail. Mm-hmm. Or you could have it be perfectly dry in the middle of winter, and it's just like spring wheeling, and it's amazing and fun.
Okay, interesting. Well, like you said, hit or miss.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we went. The last time I went for a major trip was in a March time frame, and that was nice. There was still some snow in some places on Porcupine, but the good part of that for me. Well, I'm a cold sleeper, so 45 degrees at night was no problem for me. I'm sure some other folks didn't like sleeping in 3 sleeping bags, but I was perfectly fine.
Oh, I'd love it with 1 sleeping bag or just my normal blanket.
It was cold enough for 2. I had 2 sleeping bags myself. It was still pretty chill. The wind was howling. That was the problem, and it was just you have no cover out there. The stars were gorgeous. Man, every time I got up to go to the bathroom, it was majestic.
That's awesome. Speaking of Moab, have any of you guys, I'm sure you guys have, because I think I remember seeing something. Have you guys ever done, I think it's called the chute, where you're pretty much like this incline that's straight up?
Yeah.
Every time I see videos. Okay. Yeah, every time I see videos of that, like on Instagram or TikTok, it's just I literally get a panic attack every time I watch it.
So it's funny about that is that if you, depending on the wheelbase, it's almost just climbing straight up. Like for the Misfit,
Okay.
I just have to get lined up somewhere close, and then once you start heading over the initial hump, it's a V notch, and the only way to really screw up is to turn. If you just if you go straight and you just follow the line straight all the way up to the top,
Yeah.
it's basically a highway.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, it's not a very
Interesting.
difficult obstacle at all. Now, I've seen people with the two-door Jeeps somehow make it extremely difficult, and
They get a little too excited with the steering the left and the right.
yeah, and so I've seen like just getting onto the obstacle where they've tipped over
Yeah.
or come real close. But then most of the people are so bored with the shoot, they're doing clowny stuff like driving up it backwards, driving down it backwards.
I've seen that, the backward stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Look who joined us.
Hi.
Hi.
Hey, Randy. How's it
It's
going?
gonna steal one of the AirPods.
Stealing earpieces. Yep, there we go. How's your week been, Randy?
Great. Really good. I just got off work, so I was like running. I'm like, I gotta get home. This was fun.
I had, you know what? I got to tell you guys, I had a really good time editing. I was kind of large parts of it. I just kind of got to sit back and listen. I didn't have to do a whole lot of cutting, it was a good conversation, and I had a good time meeting everybody. So
It was definitely a fun time.
what I will say is, I did not get the dog's name.
Moose. This is Moose.
Moose. Okay.
Uh-huh.
And why does Moose have a collar?
He has allergies, and so he's been chewing on his feet. I can actually take it off of him. Here.
Oh, it's okay. You know, I think it's hilarious because we're going to get a lot of questions on it after the first video goes up.
He has one that looks like a Simpsons donut that he wears.
Yeah, he loves them. But he actually likes it, so it works.
Is it like the lazy dog's way of just laying down wherever you want to lay down and have a pillow?
Yeah, he does
and
that.
he can use it as a catcher's mitt for the ball, and he can also at day camp and stuff when he has it on, he uses its bumper pads against the other dogs.
I mean, if you use what you have, I guess. Use what's in front of you. That's awesome. Moose. Hilarious. We actually had a 110-pound St. Bernard Black Lab mix that he was nicknamed Moose because he was dumb as one. All right. So I wanted to do a trail highlight here, and again, Jason, I know it's going to be a struggle for you for some of this stuff.
That's fine.
But I'm I'm glad having your perspective in here. It's for a lot of different reasons. That said, you've come up with one. You let me know. Randy and Pope, you guys have trails that you guys want me to highlight or talk about. Shoot me a short list, and then I can just add them to a rotation, and we'll just kind of talk about them as they come up. If I don't have a video for them, or if you guys have a video or a website or something that you want me to highlight. So yeah, it's just, we'll start. I just wanted to start with something that I knew and share with you guys and go from there.
Well, I think it'd be fun while we're in Trail Hero, we'll come do the podcast live from Trail Hero.
Yeah, and I'm starting to if you guys, if you guys can actually do that, I think then that would make it awesome. That would make for awesome video, quite frankly. Plus, just good promotion stuff too.
Well, and it would be kind of fun because we'll be there like all week long, and then the Friday at the end will be towards the end, so we'll have all kinds of random stories for you.
Oh yeah, that's gonna be awesome. Oh, we're gonna spend a lot of time talking about it after you guys get back, the week after or the week whatever it is you guys get back. Because I'm sure there's gonna be a lot of stuff that we want to talk about. So, and I will not be a Trail Hero. I did get news on the Jeep. I will not have it back anytime soon. But it looks like I may get it back. So we'll.
So not total.
So
Well,
we'll
hopefully
see.
it works out for you.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I do. I really don't want to have to get new hats. It's just I don't want to do it. They were expensive. Like you have to buy at least 10 hats or something, or 6 hats. I don't even know what the hell it was I bought. I ended up they were not cheap.
Depending on where you got them, I got some from one company, and it was the same price to buy 12 as it was to buy 8, because they did free art setup if you bought more than 12. 12
okay.
or more. And so
I feel like I got something set up like that. Yeah.
So the price dropped a lot to do 12. So I have these Misfit hats, and I'm the only one that wears them. But my dog steals them and eats them, so I always have like extra pile.
Yeah, I tried like keeping a couple in my closet just in case I needed them for another time frame, and then I have ADD, so I lose.
Hey, how many
crap all
pieces
the
of
time.
merch can you wear before you have too many? Like if you have a me and my yellow JK hat and a T-shirt, and is the hoodie too far? At
It
the same
is,
time?
but I'll do it. Yeah, I mean,
Rules are meant to be broken.
I'm a
I
whore
just
for
say that because I put on
self-promotion.
my Misfit hoodie yesterday with my hat, and I was like, oh man, if I had the MWO shirt, I have 3 pieces of Misfit merch on at once. That's kind of ridiculous.
I think you're perfectly acceptable. I think that unless we are all making Paris Hilton money, we can whore ourselves out as much as we want.
I hope you guys realize that you guys just influenced me to get ruby red Jeep apparel. I never really thought about it.
You should do it.
Well,
I should, yeah.
you should do it. And there's, I mean, I can give you the Lid Launch Place guys that I used, but there are some other like print to order places that you can probably get in a little bit cheaper if you want to.
That's your favorite trail, right?
This is my favorite trail whatsoever. And actually, when I took the picture that you see there, I'm on foot taking that photo, and my Jeep was stock. Like I had just purchased the yellow Jeep and was taking it up there for the first time.
You know what's funny? Just looking at that photo, it looks like kind of like a drone photo.
yeah, it does.
It does. And it like I didn't feel like I didn't walk that far from my Jeep, and then I guess I did. I mean, I when I go up there, I mean, I'm at 13,200 feet, and I'll just stay there for a couple hours because Jen's never with me anymore, like we talked about last time. This was the trail that we went up on the first time that scared the hell out of her. So, and I mean, fair enough. You don't get views like this unless you go to places like in the San Juan Mountains.
Absolutely.
So
We heard they're really great.
They're awesome. Don't get me wrong. I went there. I currently have 2 of the Badge of Honor trails, although I think my Jeep pictures have been replaced on at least Ophir. But I did engineer and stuff when we were still a very young website, and this Jeep was pretty much stock. It had the mud tires on it. I got it with it, and I think a lift kit. I think I got that before I went out there, but I'm not sure. It's come a long way, and I hear that the portion of engineer from Mineral Creek is really bad these days, but the views are not to be missed. So anyway, for those of you who are listening in, we're taking a look at a trail called Argentine Pass out of Georgetown, Colorado. It is my favorite trail out of the entire area. There are a lot of cool trails in northern Colorado, a lot of cool trails within an hour or so of Denver. Argentine Pass is one of those trails. It's about an hour outside of Denver. It's a quick trip up the road just through the Eisenhower Tunnel, but before you hit any of the major ski area. The cool part about this trail is it's one of the few places in the country you can drive a 4x4 up above 13,000 feet, and one of the closest that you can do to Denver. I was just showing folks the picture at the top. You could spend as much time as you want to, but there's actually a pretty large parking area up there because Argentine runs up to the top of the Continental Divide and the Colorado Trail that runs some ungodly distance from north. I could never walk it. Let's put it that way. Let me see here. I'm going to pull up the video. Pope, what do you guys have up there in terms of... You guys don't have a ton of height stuff, do you? I mean, I know I was showing you the Sago Canyon one.
Up here in northern Utah?
I mean, anywhere near you guys, yeah.
Oh yeah, we have really pretty vistas and stuff. Like up American Fork Canyon is gorgeous. It's like
are those easy places to get to?
Yeah, they're really easy for us. Just because we're like really close to the canyon.
It's a 30-minute drive from where we live to the Trailhead.
That's not bad at all.
No. And it's one of the more, I don't know if there's side stuff because I haven't had a good opportunity to explore it. But from what I could tell, it's a mild to medium. Like most Jeeps would be able to go on these trails and really have a good time up in that area. And they're really high up in the higher elevation. You get up near
the high Uinta is right there.
Yeah, there's one trail that we did is Snowbird, and you go over the top of the mountain from Snowbird into Mary Ellen's Gulch and American Fork Canyon. You can't just do Snowbird; you have to have special permission to do it. But
is it a private
it's
or
it's a ski resort? We drove up the ski resort. It was so sick.
Yeah.
They were doing some of did we talk about that last time?
We did. We mentioned that last time. In fact, last
Okay.
weekend, my friends were all out doing it while my Jeep was still getting built. We didn't get to go.
We were
So like 30 people get to do it every year. It's very
And they
exclusive.
go up and then they do some trail maintenance at the top of Mary Ellen's Gulch, which is the other side of Snowbird, and it's actually a Jeep trail.
Okay.
And so the cool part is you drive up this ski resort underneath the lifts and everything, and then you get to the top and you eat pizza at the gondola.
But if I'm remembering from my drone was saying we were about 9,000 feet. It's at the place where we were camping, and it was up really high near the top. So it's not quite 13,000. I don't know if we have.
No, but still enough to get your to have the air a little thinner than what you're used to.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Oh yeah, I don't do a whole lot of running around when I'm up there at that altitude either. Like I can't. I can barely walk around as is. Our house actually sits at 7,200 feet, and it's been an adjustment. But yeah, honestly, that's one of the things that I love about this trail. I took this footage last summer, I think, and it is just it's a long shelf road. It's got a couple of mines on it. One of them is the Waldorf mine, which is shown what's left of it there. It's kind of a wall and some rock. It burned down in the 80s. And then, what you don't see in this video because it's specific to Argentine, is the Santiago mine, which is the country's oldest float mine that is left standing, and it's gorgeous. Like it's hard to beat something like this when you can drive an hour and 20 minutes from your house to get to it.
Yeah, that's really nice.
That's pretty cool.
The view is so cool.
Yeah, but then of course you get snow in June and May, and I'm not even sure if we made it up to the summit. I don't think we made it up to the summit that day because I think the snow was too hard.
Probably
but the
this
colors
year
are pretty.
you had snow in July.
Yeah, we have areas.
Oh, yeah.
We still have snow up there.
Yep, we have this year we had snow until late July-ish in some places. It's kind of dependent on where you needed to go and how much that specific area got sun. But we should have expected a lot more.
Also, I Googled it, and the Uintas, like the Wasatch Range is around 11, and then the Uintas are around 13.5.
Okay, so it's pretty close.
Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty close. I mean, we're really high up here. We're in really high elevation.
Well, I think that's the thing that surprises a lot of people about Utah is that how much higher it goes up, and how green it does get when you get up there.
Yeah.
So, like I showed you guys the Sago Canyon one. That's just lush.
Mm-hmm. It's so pretty.
So,
Yeah, those are amazing views.
Oh yeah.
well, and the nice part about that one, that's a relatively easy trail. Like there's a couple of rough spots that you kind of got to be a little bit careful in. You're going to need at least a lifted vehicle for. But you know, if you can't, like we talked before, if you go with somebody that knows what they're doing, or you yourself can do kind of the easier stuff, you'll probably be fine out there. It's one of my favorite out there completely. Let me see what else. Because I think that was actually the first trail that I rode up for Trails Off Road, and the part of the reason and what drew me to it was the fact that it's all the history that it has. It actually, where you saw the Jeep, was one level, well, pretty much where the summit was for a tourist train that ran up there. And then, so all that road is just an old tourist train. They used it for some construction and some other things, some telephone lines. I think one of the first telephone lines ever across the country ran across there. Single or four, I can't remember. It was like maybe four max, 4 lines total. Like you could have 4 intercontinental phone calls and that was it. So,
Oh, wow.
we've come a long way, guys.
Yes, we have.
So, but I love that one. I've crashed my drone on that mountain twice. Once during the day, once at night. Only once during the day did I almost kill myself. That's where you back the drone up into the side of a mountain on a shelf road, and you're like, do I really want to risk myself for $1,000? I'm like, it's not that far. It's not that far at all. I didn't tell my wife about that until probably the next year, I think.
Yeah.
Hey kids, before we dip into today's episode, I want to pause and share an exclusive opportunity for brands that align with our mission and passion for off-roading and responsible land use. We're now offering several embedded advertising slots on the Trailhead. Why should you consider advertising with us? First, our community is a special one. These are folks who live for outdoor adventure and responsible trail use. They're an active audience, always on the lookout for the brands and gear that speaks to their values. But what really sets us apart is our unique hosting experience. We feature a variety of co-hosts, from trail pros and mechanics and sustainability advocates to the greenest of green off-roaders. They bring a diverse range of topics and perspective to the table, allowing us to get a better perspective on our community. This means that your brand will resonate with an expansive and engaged audience every time. In terms of reach, we're talking numbers that are hard to ignore. We have a combined social following over 100,000 people across Instagram alone. And that's not just an audience, that's a dedicated community with a potential reach that stretches into the millions of off-roaders with every single post. You should know that we're not doing this to pad our pockets. We have costs like everyone else: equipment, hosting fees, editing software, lights. The aim here isn't to make a profit. The aim is to continue to make the quality content that we're trying to make for you. And last but not least, what makes our ads most valuable is that they're embedded ads. These are ads that are permanently within the episode. They're not like a lot of the digitally inserted ads today that only play once in your podcast platform and then they're done. These ads will live on in perpetuity. Every time a new person listens in, they're going to hear your ad. Every time a new person goes through our archive, they're going to hear your ad. So if you're ready to advertise with us, please send us a message on Instagram or check our show notes on Facebook for our email address. All right, let's kick it back into gear and get back to the show. Am I going to be too close to the airstrip to ever fly my drone near the house? So when I went and had to do my license and you kind of learn about things, you find out that there's this upside down cake thing that happens with airspace and where you can and can't fly. Jason, you're probably screwed.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Actually, by my house, I can fly around me, but I feel like anywhere 15 miles from my home, it's so hard for me to fly. Like, my parents live in the confines of New York City, and specifically in Queens, the borough of Queens, and that's where you have JFK Airport.
Yeah.
And one time, the second time I tried to ever fly, total rookie move, I tried to get a nice view of Rockaway Beach, which is pretty popular here in New York. And Rockaway Beach is about 5 miles away from the airport. So my drone, the controller of the DJI drone itself wouldn't even let me take off.
Yeah.
That's what happens when we try to do it at our house, too. We're probably 4 or 5 miles from the airport, and they're like, nope, you can't fly there.
Yeah.
So what's funny, and what you guys may not know, is that you can actually fly in a lot of places where I thought I couldn't fly before. Because of the way they geofence these things, the DJI drones especially will not let you take off anywhere within the radius of the airport, basically just for safety purposes.
Yeah.
You can, however, apply to the FAA for a special authorization to go and fly in an area if you're not going to fly more than 500 feet in the air, based on how far you are from the airport. Like, sometimes if you're like here at my house, I can fly up to I think it's 1,000 feet before I start hitting a ceiling that I have to be aware of. But as drone pilots, we're not allowed to go over 400 feet anyway. So it's just a matter of doing the paperwork to get that authorization from the FAA.
How long does that usually take?
They've gotten it down to almost an automated place now. Usually, if you submit it, you'll get it back within 24 hours or less.
Okay, that's not so bad.
Is there a way to tell your drone that you're licensed or whatever, so that you can? I mean, ours literally won't even lift off the ground. Yeah, and so are you guys running a DJI?
Yeah.
Okay. I think there is a way, I think it's called LAANZ authorizations or something like that. But look it up. I'm pretty sure there's a way for you to both submit and request the authorization through their app and apply the certificate that lets you fly. But I'm pretty sure that you have to have that drone license in order to apply for that at all. That said, the drone license is really easy to take. There's a few different online resources that you can use to just kind of do like study guides and things like that for the thing. 60 questions. They are random questions out of a book that they pick, and then they're relatively easy to answer once you've kind of reviewed the material. You just have to get, I think, 80% or more correct, and you're licensed for 2 years, and then you just have to do a refresher every couple of years.
Interesting. Cool.
So, but then you're legal. Then they can't come after you and say, you have a YouTube channel with 125 subscribers, so you need to pay. You need to pay fines to the FAA because you weren't where you're supposed to be. Those kinds of things. I don't ever anticipate that folks at our level are ever going to run into that issue. But in the same breath, it's like $100 to take the test. You're covered. So if you're out there and you're listening, I highly recommend it. Something you do, especially if you're just doing random YouTube channel stuff. Or I mean, most of the I got concerned when Instagram started doing the Reels payouts, and I was like, ooh, do I need to do this? Because like a lot of my footage is drone footage. So, but now I'm licensed, so I don't have to worry about it.
Exactly.
It was a pain in the butt though. No. All right, news stuff. We didn't get to a couple of different things that we talked about for news the last time. I know for me, I'm a guy who's a little bit broken at 43. My knees are pretty much done. There's a couple other reasons why if I don't have to get out of the Jeep to do something stupid, I'm not going to get out of the Jeep to do something stupid. I'll get out to take a look, but part of the reason why I drive a Jeep is because I can't necessarily walk back into a lot of these places. Rattlesnake Canyon out of Grand Junction is mostly a hiking area, but you can drive into the heart of that wilderness area through a little sliver of road that runs right into the middle of it, giving you views on both sides of it. If they didn't have the road there, though, you couldn't get to it. And so every once in a while, I'll get news stuff related to those kinds of things. And one of the ones that caught my eyes was a German company. I can't even pronounce their name. TRETZEUG. And they made a 4x4 hand quad. And it's essentially it looks like one of those 3-wheeled bikes the recumbent bikes. But it's got 4 wheels and just 2 hands and just drive back and forth. It's a monster.
Like a Walmart scooter?
With 24-inch wheels, yes. So
cool.
It's actually rather impressive. I don't think that this is aimed at the Walmart scooter crowd. I think this is aimed more at the folks who used to be able to hike. There was just a story about somebody who had some sort of one-wheeled device but it took her and like 51 people to help her up the mountain. And I was like, wow, it'd be a lot easier if they just had something like this thing where the person could drive themselves up there, and then they'd have the whole experience of doing it themselves. Let's see here. They didn't say how much the range was, but I'm pretty sure that would probably be my only issue, and that's my only issue with electric vehicles in general right now. Even electric Jeeps, I'd love one, just because I'd love to sneak up on the moose, not your dog, actual moose. But you can't do that with a noisy V6. You just can't. That said, I don't really go through a tank of gas in more than a tank of gas in one day of wheeling, but I don't want to get stuck out there without the ability to recharge myself, and that's one of the issues that I got with that here.
How would you recover one of those things? Like if you took one of those out on a trail that's designed to be a hiking trail, but now you're riding it on there because you need it, right? And then you ran it out of battery. How does that get recovered? Like you can't take a tow truck out on your walking trail.
Well, and I know we talked about that.
Can they make a tow truck version of it?
Yeah, essentially. Like it's almost like if you're going to make something for. If we said that'd be a whole different ballgame. If you started to say like, well, if you make vehicles to go off road, then you have to make vehicles that can also recover them. That'd be a hard thing for folks like Jeep and Ford and the rest of them to stick up to. Although I'm sure there are a lot of people that listen would love to have who would say that Ford has an outsized responsibility to create recovery vehicles for their stuff.
Right, it's true. But I also think, what if they made them solar somehow? So, like, if you did run out, you could at least hang out for a day.
Well, and that's the thing, and that's where I've been at with a lot of this stuff. Like, I'm there with I want the electric Jeep, but the battery life needs to be better, and that ability to quick recharge remotely without the use of a station. And so, like in a situation like this, theoretically, I can't imagine why the battery would be too big where you couldn't just hook it up to a solar charger like we see, folks do at overland shows all the time. But I don't know. I'd be more worried about a mechanical breakdown with one of these things for that exact reasons.
That would be one of the things I'd be worried about. The other thing that you could think about with these is that what if instead of handicapped people buying them, regular people start buying them and Baja on them on the hiking trails?
And that's, it's a valid question because...
Or driving them through Walmart all blinked out like I have driving Misfit to Walmart.
That's only going to happen in the Midwest. You're good. They're not going to do that out here, yeah.
Jacked up with a lift and
blingy rims.
Underglow with 20-inch rims.
Here's the thing, though, is I wouldn't put it past anybody at all.
I just described
I wouldn't have put it past him.
I would have put it past me. I just described my future wheelchair.
And that's the thing is I don't know what I can't. I find myself in a position here where, like, do I say anything bad about this? Because it's a real good chance that that's how my future is going to pan out.
I think it's a cool product. It's a cool idea. There's the risks of it are just like you said, the electric car recovering it. My hypotheticals of what if regular people use it to go off-roading on a walking trail, I think that's actually an opportunity. It's fun.
I mean, that's the other thing too, right? But then we get in.
Then we get into the tearing up the trails, or they're doing, kinds of things. The same arguments we get in with Jeeps and four-wheelers and side-by-sides.
Yeah, so. And I mean, and some of those are valid arguments. Like I've seen some ATVs and some UTVs really rip stuff up on the trail because of the amount of torque that they have and trying to speed through this stuff. I mean, there are some places where you could put some guardrails in here. Like, I feel like, I know cost is one of the things that kind of keeps everybody from buying the Walmart scooters, if you will, for their own personal use. I can't imagine this thing is less than $15,000 out the door.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and it could climb 40. You said it could climb a 40-degree pitch hill. That's not shy. That's a pretty exceptional hill that it can climb up. I mean, there's some.
It's got that really low center of gravity. So I mean, it's even lower than a vehicle that we would drive. Mm-hmm. So you're on the flip side of though, you're really low to the ground. So you're stuck to those single track trails. You can't really kind of explore where other folks would go. With an off-road vehicle like an ATV or anything like that. I think it gives you the height. I don't necessarily know, or the articulation, but I don't necessarily know that it's going to give you the height that you need to get out and do some of the crazier stuff that off-road folks do.
Unless you put a lift on it.
Yeah.
And there you go. And see, do not underestimate the off-road community's ability to get an aftermarket going for any kind of a product.
Exactly.
I can't tell you how many times I get hit up by companies I've never heard of making products for Jeeps. Like, who the hell are you then? Like, I've never even heard of this company. And the reason why I bring that stuff up is because I know that, for me, it's one of those things I do this part of the reason because I can't hike out to these places. So we moved out here to Colorado and it's absolutely gorgeous. And I can't get up to the top of an Argentine Pass type of place. That would kill me trying to get up there. So the only way I'm going to do it is
so we can get to really cool places without having to break a sweat.
I couldn't hike Sand Mountain in Sand Hollow. I would die.
I would die.
Yeah,
I wouldn't even make it to the trailhead.
Like, even if my knees were to go and stay with me, my heart would give out at some point. Like, it'd be a hell of a way to go, but I don't want to be that kind of news story.
Every last part of you give up on that one.
It's for real though. So when I was on Argentine and I crashed my drone there earlier this summer in the dark, and I got up to a kind of the place where Jen was with me, and we got up to the place where she would normally bail out, and I'm like, I can't leave you out here at 9:00 at night by yourself. And I had to climb up quarter of a mile this mountain at about 10,500 feet. Man, I almost died going that far in 20 minutes. So yeah, I couldn't. There's another program out here called the Return to Dirt program, and it is essentially using those kinds of vehicles like that one. There's something called a Can-Am Maverick X3. Those are the guys that make the three-wheeled motorcycles. Because they do the Can-Am Spiders. That's the three-wheeled motorcycles. These guys, though, these are 200 horsepower engines with 24 inches of suspension. And that's probably my only problem with this whole story is exactly how many horsepower these guys are running with this kind of a vehicle. It's the same reason why, though, I've got an issue with ATVs for the most part. I feel like people just tear shit up with it because they can. So, all right.
And not to mention, like, you could, the amount of torque in the rear tires, and the fact that people don't drive them in four-wheel drive when they should be driving them in four-wheel drive. That's actually what creates the washboard effects on all the roads after they've been smoothed out.
Yeah,
and that would be one. That's those two things they tear. That's a bad combo between the two of them. Like, I'll take my four-cylinder Jeep out there. It can't do that.
Yeah, I have never kicked up dust and dirt like I've seen the small vehicles do, and it's for me it's hard to make an argument that. Yeah, well, we'll save that discussion for another day. that's a whole nother discussion for another day. And I'm sure we'll get the ire of many. Let's see here. Damn, those things are $35,000 a piece. That sounds more like an ATV at that point.
Can-Ams are ATVs, the X3.
Well, yeah, they're specifically just making these for like comparing that versus the hand quad seemed like much more of a use case specific. This seems much more of a wider net that they're trying to cast here. Yeah. I'm more to your point earlier. I would expect to see lift kits for this kind of shit sooner than the other device.
Oh, absolutely. There's already a great aftermarket for those. Like, they soup them up and run them in Ultra 4 races.
Oh, I'm not at all surprised by that. Yeah, that's there's. Don't get me wrong. There's part of me that would love to. Like, I still want to kind of. There's a place down here that we can rent small vehicle like UTVs from, and I kind of want to do it and just run around the mountains here and see what kind of fun it is. So see what the appeal is. It's just, it seems too dusty for me. I could just be an old person.
I like my heated steering wheel and my heated seats and my
windshield.
Windshields are nice. They make a big difference, don't they?
Windshields are important.
We're basically building off-road luxury sedans now. That's
ridiculous.
I mean, I want to say that we aren't, but we are. We really are. All right. We'll get into this next piece here. Before we get any further, I want to disclose to everybody that is listening, both of our hosts, I am a writer for trailsoffroad.com. I don't own anything with them, but I do get some money and and I do work with them on a regular basis. So we're going to talk about some of the mapping systems and navigation systems that are out there, what you have as an option when you go out there to get lost, and what's good about them, what isn't good, what we want to see and stuff as time goes on. Before I get into it, now, Jason, I know you don't have, since you just have the Roush Park, you don't have a whole lot near you.
Yeah.
Pope and Randy, what are you guys using? Do you guys use anything, or you just kind of go out there because you're
we use Onyx off-road?
You know where you're going. You use Onyx?
Yeah. The appeal of Onyx, when we first started using it, was it had all the landmarks in Sand Hollow, all the trails were marked. Compared to some other software we used, like we also tried to use Gaia at one point. And Gaia felt like I had to go get all the maps and add it to it. It didn't come with anything, and the appeal of Onyx is that everything is just there. It's as good as Google Maps in terms of how you can navigate around places.
But it's all that off-road information that you can't get on Google Maps.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that we can record things and send them to our friends that have Onyx. Like, we can be like, here's our stuff.
You can record the tracks and take pictures with it and kind of do all that stuff. Yeah. And then as the social aspect of it's becoming a big thing for a lot of these apps. I know the guys at Trails Off Road got harassed for a long time about getting an app going because, I mean, that's what we all use now. I use it. I write for Trails Off Road, but there's a lot of different resources out there. I do use Onyx sometimes to get some information that's out there because any resource is a resource. And one of the nice parts about Onyx is that it is all of that database. It's all of that government information that has basically all the BLM usage trails, all the Forest Service maps. They've gone around and gotten all the GIS information from the various government agencies. There are some downfalls to that. Sometimes that information isn't always up to date, you're better off in like a sand hollow kind of a place. You're going to get lots of updates on a regular basis from everybody who's out there on a regular basis. Plus, the popular areas with an app like an Onyx isn't really going to... They're going to work really hard to kind of keep that information kind of relevant.
Yeah, and they feel like... I mean, if there's one thing that I feel like that's worth the money I spend on it, it's been that for sure. There's also quite a bit of crowdsourced content that they added to it as well. So you kind of...
How do you feel about that crowdsourced content?
It depends
Is
on...
it good on the most part, or...
So we're going to find out some of it firsthand coming up here soon. There's a trail that we saw show up on, 5 Mile Pass, an area we go wheeling a lot. We consider one of our backyards. It's one of the places we like to show people. And there's a new trail on there that suddenly showed up. And we've never heard of it before. No one I know of has ever heard of it before. And so we're like, let's go see what this is all about. So in that area, it's kind of nice because it's a BLM type area. It's like an open wheeling pretty much.
Okay. Yeah.
So you're not going to be, if there's a trail, it used to be old mining area. So if there's an old mining trail or anything that resembles an old dirt road, you can pretty much go on it. People create shortcuts all the time through it. It's not quite as...
Those are fun areas.
It's not quite like Sand Hollow in terms of open wheeling. Like, people try to respect the trails a lot more. They don't just make up new lines and go wherever the hell they want with it. But it's also kind of, if you have a nice wide open spot, you can go through and Baja Town and see what it is. That's
awesome. Yeah. There's one of those places in... I think it was down by Cathedral Valley. And it's you see it all the time in commercials because they go down there to shoot it because it's an open OHV area. So all the truck commercials and stuff, it's got that big rock that you see them drive up and down on. Mm-hmm. And I want to go down there and I just want to record a stupid Jeep video. That's all I want to do is just kind of make it look like a commercial for a minute.
Right.
Yeah, like the audio on the Instagram reels, right?
as way as we'll try to, right? I got to try to actually make it look like that.
So anyway,
sometimes
my
the
thought
video.
On that, yeah. But anyway, what I was going to say is the thought on the crowdsourced content, they might be putting stuff out that may not be right to do, and so it actually would be good to see kind of an app that did both. Maybe Trails Off-Road does this. Like, we know of a couple of trails that aren't on any maps, and one of them last year was closed. This year it's open. And it's debatable whether or not you're even supposed to be able to go on it. And instead of showing trails like that, they just delete them off of there instead of showing it and saying, you can't go here.
Like, right. Currently, this is closed. You're not allowed to go here. Yeah.
Right. And I don't feel like I don't know of any apps that really do that. That would be a cool feature if someone added that.
So... Yeah, so one more time, because I just don't want to get called out for being a shill. But that is something that Trails Off-Road's app does. So the one difference between the Onyx is nice because it has more trails, just period, numbers-wise. And that's because they are pulling that road data in. That's raw road data. It's kind of giving you the same stuff if you were to go to like the Interactive Forest Service maps. It's giving you kind of a rough information, but it's really not giving you a trail rating or anything like that. I know some of Onyx's trails have those ratings thanks to users. It's like crowdsourced information. Some of them don't. Trails Off-Road does not do that. They have a database of trails that have just been made by our writers over a period of time. I started in 2016. There's some other folks that started back that far. In the last couple of years, we started doing something called scout routes. It's a little less detailed, but more detailed than, say, you would see on something like an Onyx. You get 3 or 4 pictures. But for those major trail guides, I update, and I'll give you for instance, Engineer and Ophir those are trails I'm lucky enough to be able to get updates from the counties themselves. When I get information from the county, usually the same day, usually within a couple of hours of me finding out, I immediately update the status of that trail. So if Hinsdale County says, hey, this trail is open, I'm going to open it. Or, hey, this trail's closed, we got enough snow, it's going to be closed, it's too dangerous, it's closed. I update that as soon as possible.
I think they do. Onyx does do that part, but what they have trails that are just absolutely not on the map because of the fact that they may or may not be accessible. You should or shouldn't do it. And so, like So like,
so you're saying like they put them in there, and instead of researching,
no, they don't have it. They
don't
have it at all. They don't even have like
okay.
the turn off will even disappear, or they might show the turn off, but they won't show where the trail goes. And so there's a couple of trails that we were on this last couple of years that we don't really tell people about because we think they're open. We asked BLM if they were open. That's the best we can do. But
yeah,
at the same time, like last year, BLM said it was open, and then there was a sign up that said it was closed. So, you can't go. You don't cross the closed sign. But when there's no closed sign, then
Well, and that's whenever I do that, when I ever get answers from the BLM or from the Forest Service, my first thing is I'm going to need an email on that. Okay.
Right.
So. We have a couple of those here. Did you send an email? Well, it's a different discussion for another day. I could try to help you find out where my guess is that it's not in some sort of government database that's out there, and it's a timing issue based on when they officially made the trail legal versus when it was actually created.
Yeah, because it used to be an old mining trail, and then they turned the area around it into a wilderness area, and then it's like a wilderness study area, not a wilderness area, but a wilderness study area, and the wilderness study initially covered the whole mountain. And it seemed like last year they divided it into two spots, and basically like there's a few trails in the middle of it that are not in the wilderness area that you can still go on, and the stuff's in the wilderness area. That's typically pretty well marked, but in this particular case, it might have been because we're going somewhere nobody goes. Like that's kind of the point of this journey.
Yeah,
and it
could be that it got temporarily removed from a map and then just happened to be off that map update that went into the system.
Yeah, and we were trying to find the name of we were trying to find the trail on maps, and it's really difficult to find it. And that might be another reason why it doesn't show up in Onyx, because we couldn't find it.
It goes through that private property too, and so that's the private property people opened it for us to go through.
Yeah.
And so that was
that could be a whole nother ball game too. Yeah, there could have been private property people that owned it and asked for it to be removed, and
it could be that too.
Because
there was,
So I guess it's a mix.
And
it's
they
a mixed
let
bag.
us through. So we were able to go through with the private property. It was just a really neat trail, but we can't tell anybody where it is.
That's okay. No, that's awesome. Like I know I tell people all the time, there are some trails I kind of keep close to the chest. I don't expect that they'll never get found, but I do try to share some of the places that I know, mostly because if there's more of us out there, it may as well spread us out. Mm-hmm. So I only keep a few of them that are superb to myself. Mostly campsites.
Definitely keep your campsite secret. Nothing worse than showing up on 4th of July and someone's in your spot.
Oh, yeah. Especially here. Like, there's only so many places you can go along the Front Range, and I found some really, really slamming campsites that are close to everything but hidden from everything, and they're going to be places we head out next year. So it'll be good. So to that end, I mean, I know from my perspective when I go and look at these trails, if it's a trail that I'm not sure of, there's a lot of time that goes into researching whether or not these things exist, whether or not they're supposed to exist. I've talked with a number of land managers over the periods of the last few years, and it's amazing how many questions they don't get. Like, I'm surprised at how surprised they are to talk to us when we actually call them. I wish that wasn't the case. So, but to your question, try the Trails Off-Road one, and this is, I'm going to cut this part out, but try Trails Off-Road when you guys are out in Sand Hollow. There's wait until right before you go, because there's a 7-day free trial for it, and then you can just give it a run. I'm not even sure what we have out in Sand Hollow. I'd have to take a quick look-see. But we just do things a little differently. Like, it's crowdsourcing to a certain degree, but we're invested in keeping the information up to date and consistent. The trail ratings are the same from person to person because we've got a kind of a standardized way of measuring levels and things like that. So, my 5 is going to be the same 5 as, say, Jason, who's out in Washington.
Well, that's interesting because when, Sand Hollow has a different rating system, it's still basically based on, what we have in Moab, where if it requires you to have lockers, it becomes a 6. 37-inch tires or higher, or 7, something like that, right? Mm-hmm. But in Sand Hollow, they actually all have trails officially ranked with a specific number, and they do actually change based on the conditions. They've actually kind of relabeled a couple of them that were 7s into 8s, and the other direction happens sometimes. Yep. But they actually have a scale that goes up to 15. And basically anything that a stock Jeep, or not a stock Jeep, anything that a full-size rig can do is 10 or below automatically. And 15 starts at, no one's ever done this trail at 15.
Without
a winch or anything like that.
And then it turns into a 14 the moment someone does it without a winch or any help.
And then it kind of slides down from there based on which vehicles conquer it. And the higher rating trails stay higher rating. Like buggy trails typically stay 10, 11, and you're not supposed to be taking your Jeeps on those for sure. but if someone does take their Jeep on it and they can clear it without without a winch, they'll actually reevaluate the rating and lower it back down the level.
Okay, there you go. And we kind of do the same thing. I think for the Sand Hollow folks, it's gonna be a bit different. And I just did a quick search to see if it was on the website, and my guess is that since it's more like a park, we may not have it in there because conditions may change so quickly, and since they have their own rating system, so
they do have their own rating system.
I'll check on that for you guys.
Yeah, and it'd be interesting to see. It'd almost be interesting to see, okay, Sand Hollow rated this as 7. And we believe, based on our personal experience that trails off road, that this is actually 6 or 6.
Yeah,
Just
and if it turns out we don't have the Sand Hollow stuff, the next time you guys go to Moab, that same kind of a test would be we have most everything in Moab, especially Moab proper.
And part of the reason why Onyx has a lot of it is Holly, and a lot of my map actually was sourced from Holly and from Dixie 4x4. They actually have a shopping cart on Dixie 4x4 where you can download all the landmarks for Sand Hollow and the nearby areas and add them to Onyx for you. And that's part of the reason why we have such an elaborate collection of things in there. I know exactly where the chute is. I know exactly where a lot of the different stuff is. And if I'm looking on a map, I can find my way out of the park and get back. So it's kind of this weird combination of BLM land / state park. The state park actually technically ends at the tunnel where you drive through to go off-road. The state park is primarily the reservoir and the camping and stuff around it.
Okay. That's awesome. Yeah.
It's such a fun place. It's a unique place. It's so special.
Yeah, I want to get out there. It's one of those things that I need to get into. I don't usually go for the crawling kind of event kind of places, but that's kind of one of those exceptions is Utah.
Yeah, and they have they have everything from mild to wild out there on Winter 4x4 and Trail Hero. If you were to if you like Porcupine Rim level stuff, you would really freaking love the West Rim and Sand Hollow. That's one of the most beautiful scenic parks.
It's 4 or 5, but it is so fun, and there's lots of little things you can do off of there, and there's a big piece of stone that looks like the Flintstone house. Mm-hmm. It literally looks like it's the exact house. It's crazy.
And then there's side obstacles that you can get crazy on. But for the main trail is actually doable by a stock Rubicon rig very easily. You don't even need a Rubicon. If you had a Sport with 35s, you'd be all set out there on that trail.
Can a Sport handle 35s with its axles is the question.
Mine had 37s on it for a minute.
I know somebody who had a 37.
For a minute, though. That's the important caveat. It was only a moment.
Yeah, but if you look at Chelsea rocked 37s.
Trail Hunter rocked it on a day in the 30s for 2 years or something like that.
But then when they opened those gears, it was like metal just melting out of that.
Well, yeah, then that's not exactly an endorsement of that particular strategy of upgrading. No,
she blew up the gears one night when we were on Milt's Mile. It was on hard right turn. The gears just busted.
Yeah, but she went for 2 years.
For 2 years.
2 years.
I mean, I'll give her that. Yeah.
And then she added a front locker to that. Oh, that was after she added the front locker, I think, on hard right turn that it broke. Yeah. But anyway, so she ended up now she has a Fusion 60 and 80 set up with similar things like I have on my.
But I was just impressed. She didn't have lockers and did all the craziest shit.
She did all that stuff.
You don't need it. It just makes things nicer.
Yeah. Anyway.
It's for those of us that like heated steering wheels and seats.
I love my heated steering wheel. I always feel very posh.
That's all right. I used to feel bad, and then I got the Rubicon. I'm like, yeah, whatever. It is what it is. I'm gonna my butt's warm. I'm happy.
And here I am. I'm so nervous about having Rubicon D44s with 38s.
Oh, I ran 40s on it for a long time.
Yeah, no problems whatsoever.
No problems at all. Especially if you're a JK or a UJL.
JL.
Oh, you'd be on JLs. The tubes are a little bit stronger on the JLs.
Yeah, just a bit beefier. Yeah.
Yeah, they're just a little bit beefier. I ran 40s on it. I didn't have any issues with bending axles or anything like that. I bent the flanges on the axle shafts, and I broke gears, and that's why I'm on tons now. But my friend, Maka Trails runs 39s on his Dana 44s on his Mojave, and wheels the crap out of it, and he's never had any issues whatsoever with it. And I think it has a lot to do with how you wheel and what you're doing.
Oh, absolutely,
as well. But his Jeep is not a slouch in terms of what kind of work it's been asked to do. So
awesome.
I think you can get away with a lot of that kind of where you kind of skirt the edges of the recommendations if you're not a crazy person when it comes to the wheeling you do.
Oh yeah.
I think the problem is a lot of folks like that get ahead of themselves and they find themselves breaking stuff like after 2 years of waiting for, say, their gears to just give out.
Yeah. I didn't like needing to take the Jeep to the shop after every trip, get new gears.
Yeah. No kidding.
Every shot of gears is like freaking $400 for the parts and labor after that, so it gets expensive. I think I only did it 3 times before I got sick of doing it.
Yeah, no, definitely gets expensive.
Yeah, so they had front gears, back gears, and the axle shafts were the one that bent. I bent them on an obstacle called Wayne's World out here.
Well, we're not people who are doing the easy. Like we're not taking it easy on. We shouldn't have been on 40s on his. Is basically the thing. If you're going on like dirt roads and like access roads, but he's taking it on like the stupid stuff.
I feel like we could have a whole we could have a whole episode discussion about dumb decisions that we've made.
Oh yeah, I've got quite a few of those stories.
See, on and off pavement, I can give you a whole set of stories for it. Real quick before I close this out here in a minute, as a side note, I do use Gaia too. Mostly I use Gaia for recording for the trail mapping that I'm doing for Trails Off-Road. Sometimes I'll use it if I find information in a GPX that I can download. Most of the time these days I'm just out there with, there's a couple of local trail maps that you can use. There's a Venza and a few other ones that I'm usually balancing between a few different apps. Gaia's okay. It's better for folks like us who are doing that kind of work. It's also better for folks who are doing multiple different kinds of off-roading and hiking and stuff like that. As a quick side note to you guys and to all of our listeners, this is your reminder that alltrails.com is not an off-roading website. Do not get your information about off-roading from All Trails. Don't go up there. That's how people end up with their GMC Chevys at 14,000 feet on a hiking trail. So just don't go up there. Just don't do it.
Oh, I thought you were going to say it had malware or something crazy like that.
I wish it did, so people didn't download it for off-roading, but they still do it, and we still get every once in a while. It's gotten a little better in a lot of the Facebook groups, but every once in a while, somebody will come in there and go, "Hey," with a screenshot of All Trails, and everybody, not just me, even the guy who does this kind of for a part-time living. You're like, don't do it to yourself, don't do it to us, because you make everybody look bad when you use that, because that information's so bad. Just don't use All Trails. There's lots of other good information pieces out there. If you got a question, ask one of us. We'll tell you. So Gaia is all right, but it's really made for the other outdoor sports and whether or not you're doing any kind of recording. Although the Onyx piece of things is kind of cool. I like the idea of being able to record within the app. It might be something we've got coming for our app for Trails Off-Road. I'm not sure. I'll have to ask. Maybe I'll see if Todd, who's the founder of that site, will come join us for an interview one day. Oh, I know what I wanted to ask you guys. So the same thing, like with regards to All Trails and all those types of things, do you think the apps are a good thing for the future of the sport? Do you think they're a bad thing? Is it that 50-50 split? Jason, let's start with you.
I think it's I'm the type of person that in general I'm really tech savvy. I'm that type of guy. So I'm gonna side with the fact that I think it's gonna help. It's gonna assist pretty well, and it's just gonna it's gonna make things, I wouldn't say easier, but it's just gonna make things more user friendly. I guess it's better that than having nothing. Even though for years you guys have used nothing back in the day. If anything, I'm relatively, I want to say I'm relatively newer at this than you guys, because I've been doing this for only 5-6 years or so.
Right.
But I trust, when it comes to certain things, I don't trust technology, but when it comes to that, I do trust technology.
All right. Randy, we'll do you next.
I think it helps people. It's safer. I mean, like, to be able to have an idea of where the heck you are, like in the middle of nowhere, I think for a lot of people. Also, like, when I listen to people talk about how a lot of trails are getting closed because no one's more than anything else. And so, like, to be able to have a, like, category of a bunch of different trails that we can go on that might not be the badge of honor trails or the trails that everybody's used to doing. To be able to go out and search out these fun little nooks and crannies that people aren't using, so they don't get shut down too. You know what I mean? So I think that a lot of it has to knowledge and knowing and being smart about what you're doing. And, like, I think it's a really great opportunity to be able to find more to make it more accessible to everybody.
I mean, seriously, to your point, the Blue Ribbon Coalition, I think, just published their second book of Lost Trails.
Yeah, we have the
trails
first one.
that
we need to get our hands on the second one.
Yeah, I got to order it too. But it's just a whole book of trails that are either closed or going to be closed in the near future, and it's a good example and reminder of why we got to advocate for our sport and for where we want to go.
And if you don't know Blue Ribbon Coalition, you need to go look it up, because they're doing really awesome things.
Blue Ribbon Coalition, they're a land use outfit, especially out here in the West, and they do just a ton of advocacy work, and they do a lot of the hard work for us since we all have day jobs. So we'll talk about the land use groups here. I'll make a point of it. We'll talk about it in just a separate episode unto itself, and again, maybe we can get some folks from there on. Yeah. So, what about you?
There's no way that doing apps like this is a bad thing, unless you're trying to make money off paper maps. Or just
a fun story. I live in the same town that Funtrex is out of. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Or unless you're just trying to keep human beings out of Mother Nature, and you want to rob everybody of being able to enjoy it. The apps are basically a way for you to know what is out there. Like in the case of Blue Ribbon Coalition, we can actually record where we went. They can add that app to their library. And so, but you can't, it's harder to get, it's easier to avoid getting lost. Like if you get lost out there and you don't have any type of map or any data at all to show you where the street is, you could die out there. I mean, so we've all modernized. It's time, we've got satellites and GPS, and you use the tools that are available to you. And in terms of cartography, that's like the latest and greatest. And you need to know where you are at all times when you're off road, whether you're supposed to be where you're at, whether you're going to be lost, whether you're going to be in danger. You just need to know. It's really important.
Yeah, and I wish that I had an opposing viewpoint to you guys, but I don't. A couple of years ago at Overland Expo here, I actually was at the Trails Off-Road booth, and I was speaking with a gentleman, and he came up and he was very unhappy with what it was that we were doing. And I heard him out, and the basic gist from him was that he thought that outfits like us were giving away that information that, they used to kind of pass along between friends and neighbors and people, locals and stuff like that. And I heard him out, but when he got done, I told him, like, so here's the problem though, is that we are now in, this was early 2020 before lockdowns really started in earnest. And I'm like, everybody's out there. folks are out there. They're going to go out there into the forest. They're going to go out there to the Black Bear Passes, and then they're going to go out there to the Porcupine Rims, the lesser known trails. They're going to do all of them. And if we want, to Randy's point, if we want to kind of preserve and save some of these trails, they all have to get used, not just the popular one. For those of you who don't know, one of the BLM's major arguments about a lot of these trails is that they've claimed that there's no visual evidence of usage recently. Now, the Blue Ribbon Coalition has found a lot of that to be bunk, but their initial claims were because they could kind of see a little bit of sand blown in, because it is the desert and these trails don't get used very often. But the more we use them, the more that we put miles on those trails out there, I think the better for us, for our sport. Every time one of these groups challenges these open roads, we lose them because people don't know about them.
Yeah, and we lose to ignorant people too. And like, for example, Sand Hollow every day, if we stopped wheeling on Sand Mountain for a month, Mother Nature will have erased all of our tire prints by sandblasting the sand. Yep. Like that, and that's one of the areas where Mother Nature decides what trails are accessible and which ones aren't. You could have stuff get washed out or blown out with sand out there, and now it's a completely different area. And
exactly.
And that happens a lot in the desert, and a lot of our desert trails are going to get sand blown over on them because it's the way the freaking desert works.
Yep. Yeah, beaches are the same way. The next time I want to talk about the San Luis Obispo thing and the beaches out there, and part of their argument for a long time was, well, it destroys the sands, dunes and stuff. Like, well, no, because it's what dunes do. They move. So it's. We'll talk about that more. We'll talk about that more next time too.
Yeah, that's a great.
Cool.
Topic.
Yeah. Let's see here. So yeah, I think that was my biggest one, and I think the reason why I asked that question was because of that question and that guy who came up to me who was very adamant that he didn't like what it was we were doing. I don't necessarily know if he was convinced by the time we were done with our conversation, but he was definitely more understanding of why we did what we did.
It's an interesting argument because it's like, well, these are the secrets that we used to tell people. Well, the problem is you're naive if you think that this isn't going to happen. So because of the fact that it is going to happen, people are going to go out. You need to take the right actions. You can't sit there and put your hands sit on your hands and be like, well, if we didn't show these people where they were, they wouldn't go. No, they absolutely would go, and they would go worse places and tear up things they're not supposed to.
Things, like, we need to know where we can go and can't go too. Like if we just guess and go out like friend word of mouth, then we're just going to destroy everything.
And that just ignores the fact that people can get lost, and that app would help them get out of it.
Right, and that's just taking the complete safety issue out of it, right? People get lost all the time because they, here you drive an hour south and you're in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
It's real easy to lose cell phone service and just not have any kind of civilization contact whatsoever. So. All right, awesome. Yeah, well, maybe we'll talk about that more in the future. I think we'll wrap up here in a minute, guys. So yeah, we're getting towards the end of the podcast. I will ask our audience one more time, if you've got questions or comments, suggestions, stuff you want to hear about, news stories that you know of locally to you, reach out to us so that we can get your story involved here at least at some point. Get it out there. If it's something time sensitive, we can probably get it out there in our social media stuff too. But make sure to reach out to us, especially about land use issues. I think you'll find all of us are pretty adamant about making sure that we make that top of mind most of the time when we're out here. Well, thank you all very much for joining. Thank you all for joining us for listening, and we'll see you next time at the Trailhead. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.
Right. Hey, folks, JD here. What a journey we've been on today. We kicked things off today with an in-depth discussion about Argentine Pass. It's not just any trail, it's a treasure trove of experiences that every off-roader should have on their bucket list. It's so close to Denver, go check it out. We talked about the specialized disability-friendly vehicles that are truly game changers, opening up the outdoors to individuals who might have thought those things were out of reach for them. We even dipped into the EV debate along the way. Now, speaking of game changers, we also delved into the tech side of off-roading. Apps are revolutionizing how we navigate trails, plan trips, and even how we communicate with our fellow off-roaders. It's the 21st century, and the technology is our co-pilot. We soared to new heights, quite literally. We stumbled into a discussion of the ins and outs of drone usage, from the FAA regulations to how altitude impacts where you can fly. It was an eye-opener for a lot. And last but not least, we touched on Sand Hollow and Trail Hero. It's not just a location, it's an adventure. And as soon as Jason and Lily and Randy and Pope get back next week, we're going to sit down and have a long discussion about it. As we wrap up, let's not forget why we advocate for responsible land use. To keep these amazing trails and experiences accessible for everyone for generations to come. So until we meet again, time to air up your tires and hit the road. We'll see you next time at the Trailhead. We did nothing but, like, at Cub Scouts, it was a big thing to go to all the wrestling stuff. So, especially WWF when it was actually WWF. Ultimate Warrior, all that crap. Like, I have a Funko Pop of him somewhere. Like, it was my jam back in the day. And then in the, like, the late 90s, we went and saw a lot of that stuff. I remember, drove 18 hours straight from Chicago to Houston to see WrestleMania 17.
That's nuts. That's one of the best WrestleManias.
Yeah, it was awesome.
That's
Because we had
dedication.
like nosebleed seats. Oh, dude. I had told my friend months earlier, like, dude, you want to go to see this concert? Like, it'd be awesome to go, or not a concert, go to see WrestleMania. Like, this would be amazing. Oh, no, I don't know. Yada, yada. And then, like, the week before, he's like, we should go. And I'm like, well, I can get a cheap rental and cheap tickets. So we got nosebleed tickets, and then we got there, and the tickets where we were supposed to be, there was a Titantron. They put a second Titantron. I think we lost Pope.
Did it freeze up?
No, he's getting his earbuds.
Oh, okay.
My wife pulled up, and she's driving the commuter, hologram, the red Jeep, and it took over the audio with the Bluetooth from my phone.
Yeah, that'll happen. I've done that. Actually, I've taken over my wife's phone calls from getting in her car to take it to work lately. So that's always fun when I suddenly find myself talking to her mom. But we drove all that way down. We ended up driving all the way down there at the last minute. We got cheap seats. They put a second Titantron on top of the first one that looks like they hadn't planned for initially. So when there was no view from our seats, and we got up to our seats, the guy said, go over there, they'll give you new seats. And we found ourselves on the floor, like 100 feet from the ramp.
Oh, that is so cool.
That's
So
awesome.
we went to WrestleMania 33.
Out. There you go.
I
thought about going back again, man.
It's a spectacle. Like, it was, now it's a 2-day ordeal, but before when it was a 1-day ordeal, we went when it was in Orlando. And we didn't just go do that. We went to go see Ring of Honor do their thing out there as well. And it was quite a thing. That's my other thing I'm a big fan of besides wheeling and jeeping is wrestling. I could talk wrestling for hours. We even went on the Chris Jericho cruise with AEW.
Hey kids, before we dip into today's episode, I want to pause and share an exclusive opportunity for brands that align with our mission and passion for off-roading and responsible land use. We're now offering several embedded advertising slots on the Trailhead. Why should you consider advertising with us? First, our community is a special one. These are folks who live for outdoor adventure and responsible trail use. They're an active audience, always on the lookout for the brands and gear that speaks to their values. But what really sets us apart is our unique hosting experience. We feature a variety of co-hosts, from trail pros and mechanics and sustainability advocates to the greenest of green off-roaders. They bring a diverse range of topics and off-road tech and news, like the Manuel, allowing us to get a better perspective on our quad off-road. This means that your brand will resonate Trail Hero with an expansive and have you ever wondered how the navigation apps like Trails Off-Road, in terms of reach, Gaia, we're talking numbers that are hard to ignore. Well, we're going to talk about a combined social following later on over 100,000 people across Instagram alone. And of course, we'll get into some gear talk along the way. An audience, that's a dedicated community. So air down your tires, throw it in 4 low. Millions of off-roaders with every single post. You should know that we're not doing this to pad our pockets. We have costs like everyone else: equipment, hosting fees, editing software, lights. The aim here isn't to make a profit. The aim is to continue to make the quality content that we're trying to make for you. And last but not least, what makes our ads most valuable is that they're embedded ads. These are ads that are permanently within the episode. They're not like a lot of the digitally inserted ads today that only play once on your podcast platform and then they're done. These ads will live on in perpetuity. Every time a new person listens in, they're going to hear your ad. Every time a new person goes through our archive, they're going to hear your ad. So if you're ready to advertise with us, please send us a message on Instagram or check our show notes on Facebook for our email address. All right, let's kick it back into gear and get back to the show.